the cats could have done it. If you have an emotional reaction when abortion is being discussed, normal. That's absolutely normal. It's okay to have an emotional reaction when people are talking about war or something unpleasant, right? It's absolutely normal. So. Okay. For the final exam, you'll need to know about Hume. You'll need to know the utilitarians. Don't worry about that. It's all up in the announcement section. You'll need to know what a universal instantiation is. And you'll also need to know what's on the board here. Who was Norma McCorley? Who were Weddington and Coffey? You see, you're becoming knowledgeable. Knowledgeable and also rational. Not that you weren't before. Who was Wade? By rational, I mean you can now put forward an argument claiming that it appears that the fetus is not a part of the woman's body because the instantiation of modus tollens. Number 4, who won the case in Texas? You need to know this. Was it Roe or Wade? To which case did Weddington and Coffey refer? What was the precedent? I think it was Griswold versus Connecticut. What had been invoked in the previous case? The right to privacy. What was the result of Roe's victory? It was moot. She still couldn't get the abortion. That's why they had to go to the Supreme Court. Number 8, what did the Supreme Court decide in 73? Well, they ruled in favor of Roe. Which right was invoked by the Supreme Court? The right to privacy. Where is this right in the Constitution? 9th Amendment and the 14th Amendment. Where is the right? Is the Fourth Amendment? Is the Fourth Amendment the one against illegal searches and seizures? Is it the Fourth Amendment? Anyone know? Yeah. You know that when you go to Walmart and they ask you for your receipt, you don't have to show them your receipt. You know that, right? That's an illegal search and seizure. You don't have to show them your receipt. People, Christian, you got to read the Constitution. Lots of people complain about the country, and that's fine. That's fine. I complain too. I complain about the country too. But sometimes it's your fault. You don't know your rights. Sometimes it's your fault, dear student. You don't know your rights. Once you buy something at the point of sale, I think it's called, once you pay the cashier or what have you, that's your property. And no one has a right to go through your things. It's an illegal search and seizure. If they detain you in Walmart, unless they have good reason to suspect that you were shoplifting or something. If they have no reason to suspect you're shoplifting and they detain you, you're being illegally arrested, you can sue them. It's a Constitution. Read the Fourth Amendment. They never ask me for my receipt anywhere I go. Because they know I'll cite them the Fourth Amendment. Do you know the Bill of Rights? I do.
Yeah, but even, like, for example, the Second Amendment says that you have the right to have a gun, and if you have your permit, you can carry your gun. But some establishments can say, like, no, you're not allowed to bring your gun in here, and you have to respect those, like, laws of that establishment because that's their private property.
Right. I think that in that case it applies, but not with regard to the Fourth Amendment. Once you buy something, unless it's a club like Costco, where you sign on and you agree to their rules, that's different. But if you're going to Publix, supermarket, or Winn-Dixie, and they have no reason, something else. Suppose you're driving down the highway on Thanksgiving, and they have those the police stop everyone, and they ask you, have you been drinking? They can't do that. That's illegal. You can't stop people indiscriminate. It's an illegal search and seizure. If you're driving and the cop pulls you over and you weren't swerving, there's no probable cause, as they say, right? Don't roll down the window. Just write on a piece of paper, contact my lawyer, and write Fourth Amendment. They'll let you go. Because they know they're going to get sued. So yes, Gabriela, it's true. With the right to bear arms, there are some limitations, and they're rational. Somewhat rational. I don't know. I'm a pretty second. I support the Second Amendment. But you're right about that. However, when it comes to the Fourth Amendment, when it comes to being stopped by the policeman on Thanksgiving at the because they're looking for drunk drivers indiscriminately, when it comes to being asked for a receipt at the store, they're violating your rights. That's an illegal search and seizure. Because once you buy it, it's yours. It's your property. Okay. My dear students, read the Constitution. Read the Constitution. And there are limitations, as Gabriela said. We have the freedom of speech, but you can't, you shouldn't shout fire, right? In a crowded theater or something. Who am I? Right, where is this right in the Constitution? 9th and 14th Amendments. Read the Constitution. The Constitution was written for you. Let me repeat that. The Constitution is written for you. Okay? 11. Which term and which clause imply this right in the 14th Amendment? It's actually, don't worry about the clause. It's the due process clause, but I didn't get into that. Don't worry about that. Just say the term liberty. Number 12, what does this right, the right to privacy, entail? According to the Supreme Court in 1973, the right to have an abortion. 13, did all Supreme Court justices make this inference? No. 14, when can a woman legally have an abortion anywhere in the United States? The first trimester. 15, what is being considered in North Carolina? That a doctor is not required to take care of an abortion survivor. 16, what is the objection to the fetus is a part of my body? The fetus does not have your DNA. 17, historically, is the fetus considered a person in the courts? No. The fetus is not considered a person in the courts. Are there any questions before we continue? Excuse me. No. Of course, not that here. There we go. I like to give both sides, always do. We're going to talk a little bit about Judith Jarvis Thompson. Judith Jarvis Thompson is pro-choice. Like Laura. Laura said, I'm pro-choice. Well, so is Judith Jarvis Thompson. And she wrote a famous paper. supports the pro-choice position, a woman's right to have an abortion. You see, a lot of people, for example, Judith, Jarvis, Thompson, who are pro-choice, they may be happy about the fact that the Supreme Court in 73 ruled in favor of Roe. Nevertheless, they think they can do better. Some pro-choice people think we can do better than that. And by the way, if you read any government document, it's a mess. If you read any government document, it's incomprehensible. Okay, so even though Thompson is pro-choice, she starts out her paper outlining the pro-life argument. So we're going to see the pro-life argument. Or we're going to see a pro-life argument. It's not Thompson's. She's just outlining it to give us some background, okay? And the argument is called the standard argument against abortion, even in the case of rape. Yeah, there are some people who are 100% opposed to abortion. Well, not 100%. I think that they make an exception when the woman's life is at risk. But not in the case of rape. Why is this? Well, because there are people who are the product of a rape who are wonderful people. There are people who come from good families, loving parents who turn out to be terrible people. And there are people who are the result of a rape who are angels. That's just the way it is. Too many to mention. So this is the standard argument against abortion, even in the case of rape. Again, it's a pro-life argument that Thompson outlines. It's not her argument. She's just giving us background. Then she'll say what she has to say. And the argument goes like this. All persons have a right to life. That's how it starts. The fetus is a person, claims the pro-life proponent. The fetus is a person. The right to life of the fetus, since it is a person, trump means outweigh. The right to life of the fetus, since it is a person, trumps or outweighs the woman's right to choose what happens in and to her body, even in the case of rape. Let's stop right there. What they're saying is that the woman has a right to choose what happens in and to her body. It's just that the fetus has more rights. So they do acknowledge the woman has some rights to choose what happens in and to her body, but the fetus has more rights. So the woman's rights are super, but the fetus rights are super duper, or supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, whatever you want to call it. Next, if the fetus has a right to life, they believe it. So it's since the fetus has a right to life, and its right to life trumps the woman's rights, even in the case of rape, then it is not the case that abortion is moral. Therefore, it is not the case that abortion is moral. That's the argument. So among other things, what they're saying is that people have rights. For example, the right to privacy. For example, the right to autonomy. For example, the right to bear arms. For example, the right to whatever. But the right to life of the person outweighs those rights. Now, whether we agree with these people or not, I hope you understand. I hope you understand what they're saying. What is the first question we ask ourselves when we come across an argument? Anyone? What is the first question we ask ourselves when we come across an argument? Anyone? Good, Jennifer, Denise, Nicole. Good. Does the conclusion follow from the premise? Don't say, hey man, this sucks. Those people, they don't respect women. Don't do that. Think of yourself as a lawyer in a courtroom. You gotta be cool, right? Don't be like me. Be cool, right? So you gotta be cool. You gotta ask yourself, okay, whether I agree or not, whether I like it or love it or hate it, let me be cool. Does the conclusion follow from the premise? That's the first question you ask yourself. So, let's see. Actually, let me go back 1 second. So you know what I want you to do? I want you to take a picture of the argument. I'm gonna find it. I want you to take a picture of the argument. I'll give you a minute. Because the fetus is a person, ego, and the person's right to life is more important than a woman's right to choose what happens in and to her body. That's what they say. But you shouldn't be asking that question. But we're not. We're comparing two different rights, right? The fetus has a right to life. The woman has a right to choose what happens in and to her body. But the right to life on the scale weighs more than a person's right to choose what happens in and to her body. But you shouldn't be thinking about that right now. Yeah, that's what they say. That's what they say. But you shouldn't be thinking about that right now. Right now, we should be thinking of whether the whole thing has a conclusion that follows from the premise. Later, we can go in there and think about what is being said. You know what I mean? First, you got to worry about the logic, the P's and Q's, and then you can go back and analyze what is being said. Okay, has everyone taken a picture of this damn thing?
Yes.
Okay, so, good. So let's go. And I'm very proud, my dear students, of what I'm going to do right now. I think it's, if you're a critical thinker, I think it's the most important class in college for you. I know what I'm saying. I know it's I'm saying quite a bit there, but I mean it. You'll see why. Okay, so the first premise is all persons have a right to life, right? And we're going to rewrite that like this. Numero uno. For every X. Today, everything comes together after weeks of torture. Wondering, what's he doing? Why is he teaching me this? For every X. Come on, baby. If X is a person, then X has a right to life. I want you to look at the picture you took, and I want you to look at what's on the board here. And hopefully you can see that it tracks it. Sania, can you hear me? Sania Dudley?
Yes, I can hear you.
What's wrong with your internet?
Sorry, I was having internet troubles, as you can see.
Okay. It's okay. So can we see that what's on the board here tracks the first sentence in the argument?
No.
Yes or no? Hello? We call this kind of expression universal what? Perfecto, Nicole. And what do we call this kind of expression, Nicole? A universal what? Yes, Megan.
Is it okay if I answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Universal quantification.
Good, good. I'll give you and Nicole credit for it. Listen, people, logic is not just a game. Okay, let's look at the second premise. The fetus is a person. You write that like this. I don't expect you to know how to do this. I expect you to be able to see that one thing tracks the other. Think of it as shorthand. My mother was a secretary. My mother was very beautiful. but she couldn't work anymore because all of the men were always touching her. Very sad. So she had to become a stay-at-home mom. So she was a secretary, and she knew shorthand. Think of this as shorthand. For every X, number one, if X is a person, then X has a right to life. Number two, the fetus is a person. The right to life, the third premise is the right to life of the fetus, since it is a person, trumps the woman's right to choose what happens in and to her body, even in the case of rape. How do we symbolize all that? I'm going to use a scale. For line 3. One side is heavier than the other, signifying that the right to life of the fetus outweighs, it's heavier than the right to life, or the right that a woman has to choose what happens in and to her body. So each line here is a symbolization of each of the sentences of which you have taken a picture. Are there any questions so far? Excuse me. Line 4. If the fetus has a right to life, and its right to life outweighs the woman's rights to choose, I did that wrong. Line 4. If the fetus has a right to life, and its right to life outweighs the woman's right to choose what happens in and to her body, then even in the case of rape, then it is not the case that abortion is moral. It is not the case that abortion is moral. So all we are doing, and again, I don't expect you to know how to do this. You're seeing this for the first time. All we are doing is taking the English, the paragraph in English, and reducing it to fewer symbols, shorthand. Now, line 4 has 3 different terms. So we're going to do something that's very similar to what is done in mathematics. We're going to put parentheses here. And the conclusion is, therefore, it is not the case that abortion is moral. I'm going to give you 2 minutes So look at the English paragraph in your picture and to look at what's on the board. And I want you to think about it and see how one thing tracks the other.
X is a person, then X has a right to life. A fetus is a person. A fetus
This is new to you. This is new to you. Are there any questions? You can see that these funny symbols do track the English. Right, that's the question. That's a good question, Gabriel. Well, first you symbolize it. The next question is, how the hell do we get to not A, right? But again, before we do anything else, do we see that lines 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the conclusion track the English language? Okay. So, once we symbolize it, then we are in a position to know whether or not the conclusion follows. How do we do that? Well, let's erase the conclusion first. Make some room. And we ask ourselves, how the hell can we solve this mess? How the hell can we get from line 1, 2, 3, and 4 to the conclusion, not A? Well, look at line 1. Line 1 is a universal quantification, as Nicole and Megan told us. And we know that we can get from a universal quantification, a universal instantiation. By the way, if you're ever on a date with someone and you don't like the person, just talk about this stuff. Again, if you're ever on a date with someone and you don't want them around, you want to lose them, just start doing this stuff. They'll disappear. They will disappear. Forget about it. You don't need to act crazy. Just do this. Ask them to help you with this. Now, if you like someone, and they say, hey, I want to learn logic, don't teach them logic. Talk about art. Change the subject. If you like the person, talk about art, music, not this. It's true. Look, I may look dumb, but I'm not that dumb. I really want to learn logic. Please, never. Never teach them a lot. They don't want to. They don't want to know this. I know what I'm telling you. So we know that you can get an instantiation from a quantification. I don't think it was logic. It was something else. It was something like logic. But I didn't. I did. You can see the eye start to. I don't have dates anymore. I don't. I've given up. I've given up on them. They've given up on me. Yeah, they glaze over. There you go. The eyes glaze over. That's the expression. So from line 1, you can get from line 1. Therefore, if the fetus is a person, then the fetus has a right to life. Right? Forget about lines 2, 3, and 4. They don't exist. Just forget about lines 2, 3, and 4. Make believe they're not there. You get your 3 fingers, or just 2 fingers. I can use 2 fingers and block them out. Just look at lines 1 and 5. If you know, right? Technically, it is not the case that abortion is moral, right? Was this you right? Yeah. Technically, yeah. It is not the case that abortion is moral. Yeah, logicians don't say it's not raining. They say it is not the case that it rains. That's right, Gabriela. Number 6, you got it, yeah. So, from number 1, we get number 5. Because we know instantiations. Because instructor Marcella taught us this. Where'd you get this from line 1? What is it? A universal instantiation. That's line 1. Line 1 is a quantification. Line 5 is the instantiation, Natalia. Because line 5 is the example, is the instance. Yeah. And again, I don't expect you to know how to do this. If you do know how to do it, if you figure it out, that's great. More power to you. If you don't, not a problem. What I do expect is for you to be able to follow me. I don't want your eyes glazing over. We're not on a date. And you're not supposed to like me. This is serious business. Professional business. Or something, I don't know. I'm sick. Did I tell you that already? Yes. Okay. Line 5 says if PF then RF. Line 2 says PF. What follows RF? Modus ponens. Look at line 5, and only line 5. It says if the fetus is a person, then it has a right to life. Line 2 says the fetus is a person. What follows? Has a right to life. You have no idea how important this is. It's not taught anymore. Only by me. And maybe a few others. In South Florida, forget about it. 5 and 2 modus ponens. Right, yeah. I think in the Hialeah campus, they still have a logic course. I think. They're getting rid of it. But I think they still have it in the Hialeah campus. Okay, so we got RF. Now, if I look at line 3 and line 6, I can bring them together through ampersand in. So I can write RF and scale. The scale looks worse each time. I got RF from line 6, and I got the scale from line 3. How did you connect them? Ampersand in. That's right. Thrown out of art school. Get the hell out of here, no talent. And if we look at line 4 and line 7, we see that we can get not A. Because line 4 says, if I have RF and the scale, then I have not A. Line 7 says, I do have RF and the scale. Therefore, not A from 4 and 7, modus ponens. And that is how you prove that the argument is valid. Somebody erase 5. Who's screwing with this? Oops, modus ponens. Excuse me. Can you move that back? Is it possible? Good, thanks. And that is how you prove that the argument is valid. Now, I want you to look at the picture you took of the argument in English. And I want you to ask yourself a question. How could I ever know whether or not the conclusion follows from the premises if I did not know logic? Again, I want you to look at the standard argument against abortion, even in the case of rape. And I want you to ask yourself, how could I ever know that this is coherent, that this is rational, that this has a conclusion that follows? How could I ever know this if I did not know logic? You wouldn't know. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know logic, you don't know if someone is reasoning correctly or not. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know logic, you read the paragraph and you must say to yourself, okay, it sounds rational, I guess. If you don't know logic, and some astronomer is claiming there was a Big Bang theory, or some astronomer is claiming there wasn't a Big Bang, or whatever. Someone's arguing against abortion, someone's arguing in favor of abortion. If you don't know logic, you cannot evaluate what they're doing. You cannot tell if these people are reasonable. Do you understand how important this is? Hey, I bought a book. In the book it says that, I don't know, racism is innate. I thought it was learned. No, in the book it says it's innate. Do they have a reason? Do they have any arguments? Oh yeah, there's arguments in there. Are they valid? I don't know. Then shut up. I don't think you'll ever understand how important this is. It's very difficult to. If you don't know this, you're in the dark. The good news is it's easy to learn. It looks more daunting and difficult than it actually is. You will learn it on your own time. It's easy. Okay, so the argument is valid. So we go back to the argument. There it is. We know that the reasoning is perfect. We know that the logical structure is perfect. The logical structure is perfect. What do we do next? What is the next step in our evaluation? Once you know the argument is valid, what do you do next? Once you know that the argument is valid, anyone, what do you consider next?
Is it sound?
Right. And in order to figure out if it's sound or not, what do you need to look at?
Is it widely acceptable?
Is what widely acceptable?
The assumptions. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
I'm like not here today.
It's okay. You're perfect. Yeah, once you know that the argument is valid, the next step in the evaluation is to look at the assumptions. Are they acceptable or not? I'm going to give you 2 minutes to look at the assumptions here, and I'll be back. Okay, so as I said, we read the English and then we discovered the underlying hidden logical structure, the skeleton, if you will, the real constitution of the argument determined the argument is valid. Now we look at the assumptions. Are they acceptable or are they controversial? If they are acceptable, then the argument is sound. If the assumptions are controversial, then the argument is unsound. Now, do we see any? Why, Natalia? Why is it unsound? That's not an assumption. That's a conclusion. Very good, Nicole. No, Nick, I think Nicole's right. The first thing we see here that's glaring, I mean just glaring, is the second assumption. The fetus is a person. That's controversial. That is controversial. Right? So we know that the fetus is human. That's true. The fetus is human. As I said earlier, it's not a rhinoceros fetus. We also know that the fetus is alive. Of course it's alive, otherwise he wouldn't need an abortion. However, is it a person? It could be. Well, some people say not yet. They say not, it's not a person. Some people say yes, it's a person. Others say no. So there's controversy. Right. Ghosts exist. It's controversial. Maybe ghosts do exist. Why not? Who cares? I don't give a damn. They exist. Good for them. But it's controversial. Maybe people are hallucinating. But I took a picture of the ghost. Maybe your camera is malfunctioning. So the second line here is controversial. Because if the pro life camp tells you the fetus is a person, you're gonna ask, why do you say that? Why do you say it's a person? And they don't have an answer for it. That's a metaphysical question, I call it. Very good. So what happened? Yeah, Nicole is a few steps ahead of us. So what happens is you're going to realize ethics is not a fundamental branch of philosophy. It's not that. It's not foundational. Because in this ethic, as we conduct this meta-ethical analysis, right, we realize we have to move into metaphysics. Metaphysics is that branch of philosophy that deals with being. What is a thing? How many kinds of thing are there? So, if the pro-life proponent tells you the fetus is a person, you're gonna open up a new can of worms. You're gonna end up asking him or her, what is a person? And that's when the ethical discussion becomes a metaphysical discussion. It goes from ethical to meta-ethical to metaphysical. So it's a problem. Right? Your reasons should not be problematic. And again, I want to emphasize something. The fetus could very well be a person. Maybe they're right. but they don't know it. They can't explain it. So it's controversial. Others don't agree. Others will tell you, look, the fetus is not a person, just as an acorn is not a tree. The acorn is an acorn. Later it becomes a tree. Sometime later you have a tree, but the acorn is not a tree. The acorn is not identical to a tree. Two different things. The caterpillar is not a butterfly. The caterpillar becomes a butterfly sometime later. So it's possible that the fetus is also not a person. It's going to become a person in the future. When does it become a person? Who the hell knows? In the second trimester, maybe. Third trimester, maybe. Maybe it becomes a person after birth. Maybe it's a person, or it becomes a person when brain waves are first detected. Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe it becomes a person when it has its first conscious experience of itself and its environment. You know that first memory you have? That's when you became a person. Who knows? So I'll put in the chat section the argument, though valid, is unsound. It contains a controversial assumption. That is, the fetus is a person. And again, don't mistake controversiality with falsehood. It just means we don't know. However, Judith Jarvis Thompson doesn't reject the argument because of the second assumption. Judith Jarvis Thompson, who is pro-choice, rejects it because of the third assumption.
No.
The right to life of the fetus, since it is a person, trumps the woman's right to choose what happens in and to her body, even in the case of rape.
Sí.
We'll put that in the chat.
Necesito ir al trailer.
¿Y se queda allá?
No.
Ah, pues entonces vaya usted sola.
¿Cómo?
Está ahí.
Excuse me.
¿Qué le pasa?
No sé.
Again, she is going to claim that what's controversial here is the right to life of the fetus because it's a person. Outweighs the woman's right to choose what happens in and to her body. And she does this with a thought experiment. She asks us to consider a particular scenario. Suppose that you are kidnapped. Suppose that you are kidnapped. And suppose that you are kidnapped and you wake up Actually, you're kidnapped, drugged, and you wake up in a hospital, in a hospital bed, some weird hospital. You wake up in a hospital bed, and you look behind. You look behind, and you see that in this hospital bed, you have been connected to a stranger, a strange man who is unconscious. You are connected by way back to back. There are tubes coming out of your body, going into his body. There's blood going from your body to his body. You try to free yourself, but it's impossible. What the hell happened, you ask yourself? What am I doing in this hospital, connected back to back to this unconscious stranger behind me? Right? I'm almost like an artificial Siamese twin. Right? The director of the hospital walks in and says to you, "Oh, I see that you're up. Good. How did you sleep?" And you say, "What the hell's going on here? What am I doing connected to this stranger? Why is there blood leaving my body going into his body?" I demand an explanation. And he says, "Of course," or she says, "Of course," right? You see, this unconscious stranger to which you've been connected, he's a very famous violinist. Very famous violinist. But he's sick. He's dying. Only you have the right blood type to keep him alive. He was about to expire. He was at death's door. We found you. We had no choice. We had to kidnap you, drug you. Only through you being connected to him can he be kept alive. Only you can save this famous ailing violinist. Now, Thompson asks us to consider. Look, Thompson asks us to consider. Well, actually, the director, before that, the director said to you, "No, what are you going to do? Are you going to remain connected? He needs you for another 9 months. He needs you for another 9 months. Are you going to be a good sport? Are you going to stay connected to him?" Thompson says that if you stay connected to the ailing violinist, not alien, ailing, sick. If you remain connected to the ailing violinist, he'll live. And he'll do a nice thing. You're a good person. Very nice of you. It would be nice if you stuck it out. Sacrifice yourself for it. It would be nice. However, you don't have to do it, right? What kind of a world do we live in? Would we live in if you had to remain connected to sick musicians? What the hell is that? This is crazy. It's insanity, right? You don't have to do it. If you do, it's nice. So she claims it would be nice if you stayed connected. It would be nice. It would be nice if you stayed connected. Well, you don't have to. You don't have to.
Ese fue el que de la ve con la ropa blanca y ya como que de blanco y la camiseta y esa me quedó como estaba la camiseta.
But he's a person. Yeah. So am I, you know. But he's a person. Now let's go back to the third premise. Thompson claims that if you accept the third premise, the right to life of the fetus, since it is a person, trumps the woman's right to choose what happens in and to her body, even in the case of rape, then, in the case of the ailing violinist, you would also have to remain connected to the ailing violinist, because his right to life outweighs your right to choose what happens in and to your life. Let me repeat that. Thompson claims, if you accept the third premise, the right to life of the fetus, since it is a person, outweighs the woman's right to choose what happens in and to her body, even in the case of rape. If you accept that, then you also have to accept that if you were kidnapped, drugged, and connected back to back to an ailing violinist, then because he's a person too, his right to survive would outweigh your right to choose what happens in and to you. So do you see the analogy here? Do we see the analogy?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, so let's do this. So I'm going to go back to the whiteboard. What am I doing? Oh, there it is. There's the whiteboard, right? So the third assumption is the one with the scale. Kids are fighting BRB. I don't know what that means. The third assumption, I'll be right back, okay. The third assumption is the scale. The fetus has more rights than the woman because it's a person. Well, if that's true, then the violinist has more rights than you do too. Or the then the violinist's right to life outweighs your right to choose what happens in and to your body. But we just said you don't have to remain connected, so we're right. It would be nice, but you don't have to do it. Therefore, what follows, anyone? What follows from 3 and 4 here? Not scale. Very good, Matthew. And that's how Thompson deals a pretty powerful law. She doesn't go after the second premise, the fetus is a person, because that's too easy. She goes after the third one. And she shows you that if you accept the third one, you have to accept something ridiculous. Clearly, we don't want to accept something ridiculous, so we're not going to accept the third premise. Here, let me write it out for you. If you accept three, the fetus' right to life outweighs the woman's rights, then you have to accept that you must remain connected to an ailing violinist. all the logic you were learning is now coming into play. There's a modus tollens argument. And of course, since we cannot accept 3, or since it would be ridiculous to accept 3, or since accepting 3 would have ridiculous implications, we reject 3. So the standard argument against abortion, even in the case of rape, is unsound. Are there any questions?
No.
So when we went over the argument according to which the fetus is not a part of the woman or the pregnant woman, we did a universal instantiation. We did a universal instantiation and modus tollens. When we symbolized the argument against abortion, even in the case of rape, we did a universal instantiation. We did ampersand in and modus tollens. And now when we analyze Thompson's argument against assumption 3, we see that it's valid as well, modus tollens. Thompson's argument is valid. But is it sound? Now we got to look at her argument too. Line 2 says, it is not the case that you must remain connected to an ailing violinist. And she tells us he's famous. Remember in the story, we're told the violinist who's sick is also famous. Thompson says, it would be nice if you remain connected to the ailing violinist. Keep him alive. You don't have to, though. Is she right? Is she right? It would be nice if you helped the famous ailing violinist. You don't have to, though. Is she right when she says we don't have to? Which moral philosophies have we learned so far in this course? Virtue ethics, utilitarianism, right? What must one do according to a utilitarian? What does utilitarianism Well, sometimes. There you go, Gabriela. What's best for the whole? Sometimes it might be. Right, benefit the majority. Good, Nicole. Don't forget, there's a handout in the announcement section on Hume and the utilitarians. So the utilitarian philosophers, who are numerous, by the way, it's not just one guy. Lots of people are utilitarian. They think that we must do whatever benefits the majority. Let's go back to Thompson here. Very good, Nicole. Very good, Nicole. Nicole, is it okay if I ask you what you got on the midterm? You don't have to. If you don't want to tell me, you don't have to. Good, Nicole. Let me check. See what she got. Oh, you cheated. Nicole's right. Nicole is 100% right. The problem with, okay, so this is very complicated. Thompson goes against the pro-life people, claiming line 3 is unsound. She does this by giving us a modus tollens argument. However, a utilitarian is going to claim that Thompson's argument is unsound because according to a utilitarian, the moral action is the action that benefits the majority, gives pleasure or happiness to the majority. So the moral action would be to remain connected to the ailing violinist because he's famous. So Thompson's argument is valid. Sorry. So everything's unsound. Nothing works. That's what a friend of mine used to tell me. Nothing works. Nothing works. Okay, usually we take a break for 20 minutes at around 2 o'clock. We didn't take it. So what I'll do is and I'm also very sick. I'm an ailing violinist myself. With your permission, I'm going to log off, go to sleep. With your permission, of course. I'll try, Natalia, thank you. Now, down to you. I'm your servant.
Take a shot of white rum, Professor, and you'll do better in the morning. I promise you.
Okay, I'll do that. I like alcohol, so that's good. You don't need to convince me too much. Thank you, Rosemary. I'm gonna die today. I know it. I have a feeling.
Okay.
Right, Jose, Denise.